Okay, it's Sunday 13th of May. It's just after 11 o'clock. The weather was nice earlier, but it's gone a little bit cloudy now. So I think we'll get a little bit of cloud and sun. This is a swarm that was housed on the 30th of April this year, so a couple of 3 weeks ago. Since then it's been incredibly wet. We've fed the bees and they've gone through just about a gallon of 1-to-1 sugar syrup, and they're out of it when I looked this morning, so we'll be replacing the I've taken the feeder away and washed it, so we'll be replacing some feed with them this morning. But realistically, this is our first inspection since they've been active. I see pollen going in to the entrance. I've still got the entrance reduced, as we're not really sure how many bees there are in there. We think it's a fairly small swarm, so we've reduced the entrance to make sure that they can guard the entrance with just a few bees. So this is realistically the first inspection. We're going to be hoping that they've drawn out a considerable amount of comb with the amount we've fed them, and we're also going to be looking for some brood, hopefully, and certainly the storing of stores, as we can see pollen going in. Pollen being a good sign, because we would think that we therefore have a laying queen. Lastly, we're going to replace one of the 11 full frames with a half frame. The reason we're going to do this is in an attempt to control some varroa, hoping that when the bees build out the short frame to the length of the full frames, or the depths of the full frames, effectively hanging off the bottom of the frame, that'll all be brood comb, and that'll fill with brood larvae, and we're hoping that the varroa, needing the extra length that a drone takes to develop, we're hoping that we'll be able to control our varroa a little bit better by using that. And then once that's all capped, we'll cut that off, freeze it, or feed it to the chickens or something random like that. Anyway, let's get on. Okay, that's the roof off. Inside here I've got the Celotex, which I put in earlier as a bit of an insulation around the feeder. I think I'll take this super off first. This is just an empty super, which I've been using to house the feeder. I put a porter bee escape in here this morning, purely because I wanted to keep them out of the super, because I was going to put the feeder straight back on. And there's my piece of Celotex. So I'll put the Celotex over here, just put a little bit more smoke down through the crown board, just to get them down in between the frames. Not looked at these bees particularly before, so we've no idea what sort of temperament they'll be, but we'll lift off the crown board. A few bees on the crown board, just shake those off. They look pretty calm at the moment. Just a little more smoke across the frames just to drive them down. I'll just increase the buzzing very slightly, just to keep them a little bit calm. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, there's 11 frames in this hive, pretty standard in a national hive. Taking out the end frame, we can see there's absolutely nothing on the frame, not been drawn out, just plain foundation. So I'm just going to stick that one down. Just as a matter of policy, I'm going to stick that down by the entrance. I'll do that later on in the season when the bees are actually active on the frames, just to make sure that they can get back into the hive. So I'm not going to disturb this too much. Just going to move all of these frames back a little. Now, this frame being the third one back, again you can see here that there's absolutely no drawing out on that frame at all. So I'm actually going to remove that frame and replace that with a short super frame, a half frame, which I'm going to put in back in position 3 to try and help control varroa. So we'll just leave that one there on the side. Again, I can move these ones across. There's absolutely nothing on these frames, and this really is the first frame of bees that I've got on here, so nothing on this side nearest to the camera, but you'll see when I lift this one out that on the reverse side I do have quite a number of bees, and they're actually drawing out the comb. I don't expect to find the queen on here, but one of my objectives today is to find the queen. They seem very calm, very docile, so I'm quite happy about that. But I'm just going to now take a look. Shouldn't take long, and yeah, nothing particularly to be seen there, just bees happy drawing out comb. So we'll slide those back into there, and we'll just then look at this frame here. Now this is getting closer. I think I'll just put a little more smoke in there. I dropped that frame in there a little bit heavily, so I think I'll just calm them, or hopefully calm them, and then we'll take out this frame. Now we're getting nearer to the centre now, so you might expect, and this one is far heavier. I'm not sure whether that's just heavier with bees or whether that's actually heavier with anything else that we want to see, but let's just take a look. Yeah, so we're storing, I'd like to think it was nectar in here. Of course, where I've been feeding them quite heavily, they could actually be putting sugar syrup in there, but you'd like to think that that was actually nectar stores. I don't see any brood in here at the moment, so I'm not really expecting to see the queen on this frame. Little pollen, but only really a cell or two. Just turning the frame now so that I can take a look at the other side, and once again don't really see too much happening on that frame. Again, nectar, well, we'd like to presume nectar, as I say, but could equally be the fact that they're storing some of the sugar water that I left them. So that's frame number 5. On to frame number 6 now, which is very much a central frame. So I'd like to think, as I can see here, that this one is pretty much built out. They've still got the corners to do. Again, they're storing nectar and pollen in this one. Still yet to see Her Majesty, but certainly there's some decent activity on this frame, which is good, and again the frame is quite heavy. Just spinning around, there's a lot more pollen on this one, on this face. Once again though, looking for the queen, but I can't see her. And indeed I see no eggs at the moment, which is probably the thing I was really hoping to see, as that would show me a real sign of a queen. Anyway, we'll roll that frame back in. Again, they're very, very calm, which is good. Now this is probably the last frame where I would stand a chance of seeing the queen. It's as near to the hive, centre of the hive, as we can get. Again, let's try and blow on the bees to part them. And I see no eggs still, which is slightly disappointing, particularly as I've not actually seen the queen. If I could see the queen, then I'd be a little more excited. Let's look at the other side of the frame. Packed full of bees. Lots of pollen on the legs of the bees, so they're actually depositing pollen, which would say to me that there is a laying queen. But I still can't see her, although this one is very heavy with bees, so she could well be beneath those piles. Let me just once again blow, see what we can see. Yeah, unfortunately I see no queen and I see no eggs. And then the last realistic frame that's got any activity at all, I see the remaining ones have nothing happening on them, and this one just has a few bees, and those few bees are just still drawing the comb. I'm just very quickly going to go back through these middle frames because I really would like to see the queen if I possibly could. They may get a little bit agitated with me keep pulling them out, but there just seems a lot of pollen about, which would say to me that there was a queen on here, but I just can't see any activity of the queen, whether that be in the form of eggs or larvae. Not necessarily expecting to see larvae, because I think she's probably would maximum only have been laying for probably a day or two. Okay. Take the one more frame out, I feel. You can tell they're fairly new bees and new hives on account of there's very little propolis on the hive. I didn't have to crack too much, but again, lots and lots of bees with pollen on their legs. No sign of a queen. I think probably my inexperience is not allowing me to see her if she is here, because unless she is actually marked, she's just obviously longer and bigger than the other bees. But I think an experience, there's a drone over there, so we've certainly got some drones in here, but I see no sign of Her Majesty. So one more frame I think I'll try and take one look at, which is realistically the last frame with a lot of activity on it. And the technique they tell you is to scan it and you'll pick her up. But as I say, I think maybe my inexperience is not helping. Well, I think maybe I've disturbed them enough, so I'll slide that frame in, trying not to squish any bees and send off any alarms, and then I'm going to slide my half frame in here, I think at frame number 3, so in there, which is after the, actually no, one more, sorry, so that slide across, this one goes in at 3, this one slides across, and then my single frame here I can just slide in there like so. So if I now just level those up so they're all nicely pushed together. Quite an interesting thing here, if I can move the camera a little closer, you'll see that the cluster is now actually fanning, which is sending off pheromones. If you look at them, you'll see some bees there with their bottoms in the air, frantically fanning their wings. It's sending out pheromones, maybe a little distress, or it could just be that they're controlling the temperature. They use fanning to do both of those things. But anyway, we have looked at the hive, and I think now we'll stick the board back on. So just give them a little smoke, which should drive them down between the frames. Just drive them down. There we go. Then we'll put the crown board back on. This one has bee space both sides, so it doesn't much matter which way up we put this, although that's the way it came off, so that's the way I'd like to put it on. I'm then going to drop the feeder back in. This is the old feeder, so it's a top rapid feeder. Goes over the crown board hole, the bees come up the middle, they come up inside the dome that's just put on there, and the rest is filled. The big benefit of this is you don't need to suit up and everything when you just want to top the feeder up. So I shall drop that feeder now over the central hole like so. Then I'm going to put the empty super onto the top and just level her up like so. And I'm going to put the piece of Celotex back on, which is just by means of insulation. The other thing it does as a double is to, in fact I'll take the feeder out and put that in after, is to actually cover up the other crown board hole as well, so it stops the bees from coming up into this super at all, which is a real benefit, because as I say, you can actually then feed the bees from above. And then I just drop that down in like so. Don't need the bee escape anymore because I put the feeder in its place, and then I'll just walk off and get my feed. It's a 1-to-1 sugar feed by weight and volume, so it's 1 pound of granulated sugar to 1 pint of water, diluted through, and there'll be enough room in here for the 2 pints, hopefully. Sorry, the 4 pints, I beg your pardon, because of course it's 2 pints of water and 2 pints of 2 pints of water and 2 pounds of granulated sugar. There should just about be enough room there, like so. So that's the feed done. I'll just cover that over. So, and then if you'd like to just take a look down in there, you'll see now we're now full of feed. What I'd just like to do to encourage the bees is just lift the dome off the centre like so and just flick a little down onto the frames. That just tends to encourage them up the slope and into the feeder. Then we'll replace the top on the feeder and the lid on the box. So, fairly successful inspection, just a little bit disappointed we couldn't find a queen or any sign of a queen with laying eggs. I'm still relatively encouraged by the fact that there's pollen being brought into the hive, and also I'm pretty pleased with the fact that they seem relatively calm too, which equally would say to me they've got a satisfactory queen. But we will see. I think probably I'm going to need to inspect in the week if I possibly can, because I'm away next weekend. So if I could do that maybe Thursday or Friday, then very much I'd expect to see eggs and maybe even possibly some small larvae.